system engineering is a lesser known profession in the engineering kind of area. Everyone knows about mechanical and electrical and everything else, but people aren't aware of system engineering. And it's also quite difficult and to describe to others that aren't aware of the profession, which also contributes to the lack of diversity you kind of see in the area. We came up with a value statement, I believe last time, which is to further the awareness of and interest in system engineering amongst non-system engineers, which is the main aim of today's outreach, finding ways that we can help sell system engineering to non-SE professionals. So the aim of this meeting is to give a quick news update on ECF news, and then we're going to the main session of selling system engineering to non-SEs. And then we'll have an open discussion kind of at the end, just a couple of topics that we thought would be interesting. And moving on to the next one. So I think you've all received an email now from ECF about the in-person event we have in July at Birmingham. This will be at their RAL Centre, I believe. Their Centre for Research, RAL Research and Education, which is obviously part of the University of Birmingham. It'd be an interactive day for everyone that kind of attends. With some workshops running, as well as some simulation going on with how the rail system uses system engineering. So that event is free for everyone to attend. There's a sign-up link on INCOSY's website for people that want to attend. And it should be a great day out for everyone. The next news we got is the next instalment for the System Engineer in a Year series. We're holding that next week. This will be based around presenting how to present as a system engineer. A lot of system engineers use system engineering in the day-to-day life, but when it comes to presentations, seem to lack there and struggle with how to complete that. So it should be a good session on explaining that to people as well. And the final bit of news we have is the book pilot. So a system engineer has created a book for us. Based around, it's called The Adventures in System Engineering, and it's a pilot based around how to deliver system engineering sessions to non-system engineering professionals, which is great for the topic of today's session. So the outcomes from last session, after the discussion we had, it was kind of came to the conclusion we have a desire to target the early careers of individuals, making sure individuals know how to talk to other people about system engineering and how to deliver materials to help explain it in simple terms that people understand, as well as helping promote what early careers system engineers get to social media. So coming in from a LinkedIn page and posting articles from everyone there. So I said, selling system engineering was an issue raised at Forum 1. Engineers wanted different ways they could deliver sessions on selling system engineering and best practice to go about this, which is something that we realise there isn't much out there at the moment. So the challenges were the limited material to support engineers doing these sessions. There's not much out there from INCOSY on how to sell system engineering or easy ways to define it. And there's no standard approach to do it for people to kind of learn, memorise and go from there. So the solution for this is obviously the next instalment for the System Engineer series will be how to present using System Engineer. And this can be used to do to non-SE individuals as well as a book pilot session, which I believe Nathan's going to discuss with us now.
Yep, thanks, Becky. So as mentioned, we've been ECF have been approached by someone who is currently writing a book for INCOSY UK in a similar manner to what you might already know as the Don't Panic guides, short books that people can publish through INCOSY that then go through to the wider market of systems engineers. And so the book that's in the process of being reviewed at the moment is called Adventures in Systems Engineering. And the purpose of this book is to effectively give the user the knowledge, know-how, slide deck material to be able to deliver effectively an introduction to systems engineering course. But I'm not sure how many of the people on this call have been on a course like that before. Perhaps their companies run something like that, perhaps they don't, but they're not always the most user-friendly ways of doing that content. System engineers, we like to explain stuff, but often we're not so good at remembering what it was like to not know any of that in the first place. And so the idea of this book is it's meant to be a bit of a fun adventure-based approach. It's a bit whimsical. It's a bit fun, a bit silly. but it is broken down into a number of sessions on how to explain these concepts to people, get them to do group activities, and get them to put those concepts into practice. And the ask that we've been given as ECF from the person who's written this book is, can we pilot it for them? So that this is effectively broken up into two parts. They're interested in having people read through the initial parts of the book, what we've been given so far, which is the first 5 or 6 chapters or so, which I've had a quick look, and it amounts to about 65 pages of content. And you're talking, this isn't the Nkosi handbook level of pages where it's double sides of text. It's standard book format, so it's not a whole lot of reading to do. But to read through this and to give feedback on the book, what is it that it does well? What doesn't it do well? Do you feel like, as a reader, do you feel like it gives you enough to be able to confidently deliver the training material that's listed, that's written out in this? And also, just how does it read? Is it good? Is it entertaining? Is it interesting? Would you like to do that course? And then the second part of the ask is, having read that book, would you there's then the option to actually run 2 sessions. So just checking the original email. Interest in running, so there were 6 chapters of the book so far that have been put through, and the writer would like us to run a session on chapters 1 and chapter 6, and so each of those would be a single hour lunchtime session style thing, like we do with normal ECF. Sorry, the first session is actually a combo of chapter 1 and chapter 3, and then the second one's chapter 6. But the idea is it's 2 separate sessions, an hour long, where someone would read through parts of the book, give their feedback, present to a small willing audience on this, who are also there to give feedback, not just there to learn. And the idea here is that, going with the theme of selling systems engineering to non-systems engineers, this is something that could help ECF understand better how to conduct this sort of work, from someone who's taken the time to read a book about it. And not only can we learn from this, but we can also pass on our feedback as early careers individuals so that this book is as good as it possibly can be, and potentially with all the training sessions that are going to be run in the future when this gets published, it's going to have the ECF stamp of approval on this. So in short, it's a really exciting opportunity for us to get involved in a technical review process that's usually reserved for much more experienced people in Nkosi UK. We will in fact get to look at this before they do, which is pretty cool. And I think it's around that topic of giving the chance for people to practice their presentation skills. I think this is a really interesting way to develop your skills in presenting, in leading and training. And so the hope is, and we'll send this out to the wider ECF audience as well, but you here in the outreach forum are hearing about it first. We're just hoping to get some volunteers for this who can basically take the opportunity to tick some items off for chartership, get some good experience, and contribute to the discipline. So firstly, I just wonder if anyone has any questions about this. Is there anything that hasn't been explained particularly well? Is there anything that you're curious about and want to know a bit more? Do feel free to come off mute and just ask away. Or use the chat function as well. That is also good and stuff.
Are these intended to be in-person sessions or online or a bit of both?
So I imagine the final product of the actual, when the book is published and such, it's probably either or. But in terms of for the ECF ask of us doing the pilot, we'd be doing this online as we usually do. That much increases in attendance and takes off a lot of the logistical overhead of it. Thanks, Joshua. Any more for any more? I can see there are some people chatting, typing in the pane, so I will just give that a few seconds. But the main thing is anyone who is interested in this, if this grabs your interest and it's something you'd like to get involved in, please do reach out to any of us on the committee. I'll just quickly put my email in the chat right now. Yes, don't worry, we will be sharing the PowerPoint and we'll also be sharing the recording after this as well. And my email is now in the chat for anyone who wants to get in touch about this. Cool. Other than that, we can move on, Becky.
Yep. So I believe you covered this in your talk there, Nathan. So thank you for that. Next slide. So this is the open discussion now section of the Outreach Forum. There's a couple of ideas that the committee have come up with that we're proposing to the members. So the first one is Z guides. So for those who aren't aware, Z guides are kind of documents produced by INCOSE members that get published on various different topics. An idea that was raised, I believe, by Nancy, was to convert the System Engineering of the Year series to a Z guide at the end. So all the information that was provided in the sessions would go into a guide and be accessed at any point. What do people feel about that approach to giving material out?
I feel that's a good thing to do at this point, especially because apart from a few magazines and a few like the handbooks and a few, it's still very limited guidance that we have. And with the transforming world, like it's not like we are still, I mean, you know, the industries are still stuck with the old ways of working. Everything has also changed. And there are also new industries which are trying to adopt systems engineering, because initially it was just, I mean, even now it's very restricted to aerospace and defense, and you know, slightly now there is mechanical, which is automobile industry, which is adapting to it, but it's still pretty new, especially for me, like for the, be it semiconductor industry or the any new technologies, which is still struggling a lot to transform to system engineering, because the instant thing that we hear is it's just for aerospace and defense. We don't have to, I mean, we don't have enough resources. So I think this when you actually send out these series out, I think it'll be at least helpful for people to understand that
Yeah.
So I think it's very important.
Brilliant, great feedback there. Anyone else have any opinions on the Z guides?
I suppose a follow-up question to anyone is there, has anyone here read any of the INCOSE UK Z guides? Have you, did you read them when you joined INCOSE? Is it something you've looked at? Are they something you find helpful? Do you think they're a good format of doing things? Or if you haven't come across them, that's completely fine. That's good to know, because then there's a point there around how visible are they? Do they need to be shared better? Yeah, I'd be interested to know what people think of that way that INCOSE UK does things.
I'm sorry to be talking too much, but just one more thing. I was informed of the Z guide only in one of the workshops that I attended last time, one of the face-to-face workshops from the MBSE outreach group, which I'm also part of. So it is not very visible, actually, the Z guides, until you be a part of one of these conversations. So I think we need to sort of bring more publicity to it and, sort of post about it, probably. I mean, maybe use LinkedIn or even other platforms to sort of bring it out, because I think the access is still very limited.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's a really good point.
Fair comment.
Thank you, Vishva.
Thank you.
I would also agree with Vishwa in that I haven't really come across the Z guides that often. It's not something that I'm directed to when I have questions or anything like that. So I wouldn't say it's very well advertised, if I could use that word. Yeah.
No, thanks, Shay.
Yeah, I have a bundle of them. I was given them at one of the INCOSE conferences. But once you're already at an INCOSE conference, maybe you're already sort of in this world. So yeah, I'm not sure if that was if they're better to be handed out to people who aren't at an INCOSE conference.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I got a bundle from Simon and John Hall at the MBAC conference too, and I managed to forward them on to some of my stakeholders and been very useful. But on that topic, I just wanted to add, I've been trying to introduce MBAC architecture framework stuff to completely new industries. One's like distributed power generation, and one's to do with sustainability and conservation. And both industries deal with a lot of complex problems where the trade-offs aren't being made as well as they could be, and there's a real value for systems approach. But one thing I would find really useful from the outreach activities that INCOSE does is if we could like collectively make a pitch book, because some of the arguments I'm sure are shared across different industries, and I'm sure like managers who don't know anything about SE, we're probably all making the same pitch books in different roles, and if you could share like a common pitch book where we tackle common arguments, like for instance, our company is too small to do this. Well, it's not about the company, it's about the problem you're trying to tackle. So if your mission is to tackle a complex problem, it doesn't matter if you are a big or small team, right? So it's things like that. It's just like collectively fight this argument, so we don't have to redo the work individually.
Yeah.
So
Has anyone else
pitch book
had those issues as well?
Pitch book is a term I haven't come across before. Shivali, is it sort of like a frequently asked questions kind of thing?
Kind of, but it's more aggressive than answering the question. It's kind of like actually pitching the idea of why systems engineering is useful for this particular application. So if we could have like, small companies, big companies, small problems, big problems, just like a whole attribute list of what different types of challenges we might face. Some of them could be completely political or to do with people rather than systems. So things like that, just some sharing some tips and tricks really to convince to convince like especially like senior management board, like they've never heard of it, they don't see the value of it, and she'll have one man against the whole board is not easy. So we could share, especially for outreach activities. I mean, in established industries, this is probably not an issue at all. But I've come from automotive and then gone to a new industry where I've seen the real value of it and struggling to introduce it purely because of these reasons, nothing to do with the problem not being suitable for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, great. No, thank you. That answers my question.
Anyone else have any comments regarding the Z guides? Yeah, move on from there. So the next kind of idea we have, obviously about selling system engineering to non-individuals, is what do we think would appeal to young system engineers, and what drew yourself to system engineering? So if you could all kind of explain to us why you're in the system engineering profession, we can go around and have a discussion around that. Do you want to go first, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm happy to kick that off. It was a pretty simple reason I went for systems engineering, because I only heard about it quite shortly before I started my career. I heard about it in my final year of uni, and for me it was because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I felt like I did aerospace engineering at university, and I didn't feel like I was the most as technically able as an engineer as a lot of my colleagues were, but I knew I had other softer skills that I could balance that out with, and I wanted to know where I could go with that. And so the systems engineering's focus on sort of the big picture, and instead of what engineering usually does, which is zoom in and zoom in to get to the decompose things to a really fine level of detail. It's more about maintaining that holistic view, and that really appealed to me also because of the breadth. Systems engineering can be used almost anywhere, and so at such an early stage in my career, it was really attractive to me to still have that variety and not get pigeonholed into one particular line of work.
Brilliant, thank you for that. I know personally myself, I was always going to go down the route of doing mechanical engineering. And I was picking what to do during COVID times, and just the kind of diversity that system engineering could potentially offer me was an amazing factor. I didn't want to be tied down having to do the same thing day in, day out. So having that flexibility doing system engineering was something that I really wanted to do, and it's paid off so far. Anyone else want to talk about how they got into system engineering?
I can go next.
Yeah.
So I've been a system engineer only since 2018 or 2017. So it started so I come from India, and system engineering is even today a bit more niche in India. It's not that everybody understands it. So it started off when I was doing my bachelor's in engineering. I got an opportunity to intern with Safran in India, where my my mentor is a system engineer, but he is like a system engineer from 2010. So he comes from the same university that I later on went on to do my master's from. And what impressed me the most was that systems, so it's like you have to be a jack of all trades, literally. It's not like, so although I'm an aerospace engineer, and system engineering it was very relevant to aerospace engineering, but what impressed me was like how I think Nathan said, it is more about the whole picture that you get, which sometimes engineers get very concentrated on just a small problem rather than looking at the full picture. I enjoy looking at the holistic picture. So that's how I got into system engineering and my interest developed. So I worked as a system engineer before doing masters, and I realized just with a bachelor degree with no prior knowledge on what exactly system engineering is, people were not giving the same value to me. So then I decided to do my masters, and yeah, that's how I am a system engineer now. I enjoy it because you can apply system engineering not just to building aircrafts, but also to like smaller things like conducting elections or building a toilet, even simple. So that diversity helps me a lot.
Brilliant, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to share how come they got into system engineering?
So myself, I was doing a lot of organizational transformation and data management and software, and then I was moving more into challenges with the software in sort of military deployments and having sort of very harsh environments on which the computers were, and having big problems with overheating and things like this. And I was sort of tearing my hair out trying to figure out how we have a product that holistically works well, and sort of stumbled into the world of systems engineering as maybe an antidote to our challenges. And I'm not sure it has been quite the antidote. I think sometimes systems engineering oversells itself, but I think that there is some good stuff there, and that's why I've tried to adopt.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, it was the same for me as well with the whole big picture stuff. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I got really into MBA and SE via an informal mentor whilst trying to put together a new battery crash test program. And it was someone from vehicle safety and functional safety who actually inspired me and helped me develop that process. And it was the long-termism and big picture stuff, and the ability to systematically actually analyze all the factors that were going to influence the test program. That's what inspired me. So I was not at all a systems engineer, but I was quite frustrated in my role with all the chaos around me, and I found peace and structure when I met systems engineers, and that's what got me into it.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. your perspectives there, Shivali and Joshua, just in terms of coming initially from a non-systems engineering background, but then being exposed to other systems engineers or people who practice that and seeing where the benefit can be applied there. That's interesting to see that dynamic.
Moving on from that then, what do people think would appeal young engineers to take up a profession in system engineering? What would selling points be?
If I have to be honest, the biggest selling point is that it's not domain specific.
Mm-hmm.
That's something we need to bring out to the people.
Yeah.
And
I know.
Yeah, go on.
I should say, I know I go to kind of a lot of schools and colleges and do events kind of explaining system engineering to young individuals, even younger than early careers. And they're not aware of it. They think engineering has to be limited to one domain. If you're doing mechanical, you're stuck doing mechanical. You're doing electrical, you're doing electrical. But it's that beauty of system engineering is you can apply it to any domain depending on the projects that come in. And I think it's something that, you know, people really need to hammer home when trying to discuss system engineering to people as well.
Yeah, I think that variety is a huge selling point. I think it's quite scary when you're choosing your career thinking, you know, if I commit a few years to this, is that a few years that I could have been doing something else that could have been my dream career? And I think being able to have that flexibility is a really attractive prospect for sure.
Is there any other aspects you think to it?
The other thing is actually about also, you know, as systems engineer, you get to sort of one thing, see the holistic picture, but also ask questions and justification. Like, you know, I've always noticed that in a good system, in a good organization, a systems engineer can always voice out what is wrong. Like how a quality manager is always given that freedom to go question and like seek the right justification. Similarly, a system engineer gets, you know, that sort of authority. It's not authority, it's a responsibility to do it. And so you usually don't have a dull day. So
yeah, that actually reminds me of another thing that it's not what drew me, but it is something that I appreciate in the role that I would advertise to other people, is because of the breadth of it, you get to understand at least a surface level knowledge of quite a lot of different things. You know, like you said, Vishwa, with the jack of all trades, it's quite cool and quite gratifying to be like, no, I'm not an electrical engineer, but I do have a basic understanding of what an electrical engineer does, like enough to have a conversation with one and, you know, understand a bit of what they're doing. And that's quite cool.
very true.
Nincy, I saw you came off mute. You were a little bit quiet though, but we might be able to hear you now.
Sorry, are you able to hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to Nathan's point and the previous speaker. Sorry, I don't have the names in front of me. But in terms of the jack of all trades and having a surface level knowledge of the different disciplines, I think it also helps people who aren't sure of what discipline they want to go into. Like I've seen many people come into systems engineering and then after find out they like software or they like hardware more, and so they go into those fields. So it's a good place to come if you're unsure of where you want to start out, and it gives you that chance to kind of get a sense of the different disciplines. And I also wanted to highlight in NG, I've noticed quite a few of the senior SLT team have a background in system engineering. So it gives you, as we've all said already, that bigger picture, that overview. So if you want to go into those management positions as well, and you have to like oversee programs or projects within the company, systems engineering is a good tool to have and have the background in systems so that you can effectively project manage well. And I've seen quite a few people go into project management as well from systems. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that they're all really good points, and I say something that when you are talking to people who, you know, maybe are figuring out what career they want to do it or whether they want to do it after university, just having that conversation about system engineering and obviously explaining all the points we talked about today, because It is a great domain for people to get into that don't know what they want to do, but also for people that do know. If people want to do mechanical work, they can still do system engineering and complete that work. So we'll move on. So the next kind of point we have for the floor is, it was mentioned in the last forum about potentially doing a LinkedIn outreach campaign. So helping advertise the Z guys and the system engineer in a year series as well. We've got a couple of ideas already of weekly, monthly posts, you know, what it means to be a system engineer, as well as getting testimonials from early careers. Is there any kind of information that you guys, as the early careers forum, would like to see on the LinkedIn page?
I think one would be to, like I mentioned before, although we have a lot of system engineers in the field of aerospace and domain, and the common domains, if we can bring people from the other domains as well and like bring their testimonials out, that would sort of be an encouragement and like advertisement that system engineering is just not limited to the standard industries. So that would be a
I think that's definitely a point to obviously hammer across, is you can be from any domain and do it. It's not just kind of the main ones that get brought up all the time. Thank you. Shisa?
Hello, hi. I guess one of the things to also keep in mind is, what do we want to include in the testimonials or the outreach content itself? Is it just a picture of a person, 3 lines of why they were in systems engineering? Or do we want it to be a bit more in-depth case study of 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs from the same person, why they joined the industry or whatever it is? Not sure at this point what would be more impactful. I guess that's open for discussion, but I guess that's one of the things.
So following on from what Shisam said there, does anyone have any ideas of what would be best approach, whether you have that little profile, a couple of sentences about why there's system engineering, or whether we have it more as kind of infographic information, a couple of paragraphs about the background and how they got in. What do people think would be the best approach for this?
At least for LinkedIn, I think it's better to now we can do the sort of blog post kind of posts on LinkedIn, where you sort of add like a 3-liner or a 4-liner in the post, and then add like a blog post where they can go and click and read more about. I think that's better, because when you scroll through LinkedIn posts, usually unless it's very catchy, we don't open it. And if you put a very long para-based post, sometimes people just ignore and go on. I mean, this is just something which I feel, maybe I'm wrong. So a few catchy statements and then like a blog post, or that could be of people's interest, but this is just my opinion. So
I know I'm the same personally. If I see a long kind of post, I would normally read the first bit, skip to the end. It's not something I'd spend time reading, but having those catchy 3 lines there and then a link to something else may be worth doing then.
Yeah, I think Zishan's point around saying, because what we've discussed here in the last point is, what is it appeals to the job about us? What do we think would appeal to other people? That's a very quick win, I think, that we could score with such a LinkedIn page, is to just have a few, just keep frying small fish to begin with. Just look at all these cool people and why they chose systems engineering. And then all it takes is for someone to, be scrolling through their LinkedIn feed and they see someone who they're like, oh, yeah, that person, like, I suppose I could be a systems engineer. That would be cool. I think that's
it's having the likeness
seems to
between
me
the people looking at it and the post, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's a good way of getting people interested in the profession, at least as a starting point. Would love to hear other people's thoughts though.
Yeah. As well, if people have any thoughts or don't want to raise them, feel free to email across after. Obviously, Nathan's put his email in there, and we can hear ideas out all the time as well.
I suppose I would be curious, does anyone think using LinkedIn is a bad idea, or are there potentially other channels that you think would be more effective? I I know that LinkedIn isn't everyone's favorite, but yeah, it does have a primarily business audience, which is quite good for getting more people into the profession, but that is only one way of looking at it.
You know, also, I mean, I've come across this recently. I mean, since we're targeting very young audience or like early careers and people who are moving, you know, let's say it's the younger audience. I've seen like companies, a lot of companies, like even mine, the one I work for, and they have slowly started social media campaigns as well, which is Instagram on target. So, I mean, yes, LinkedIn is very professional. LinkedIn is where most of the professional contacts are, and people are using it at a wider scale. But also slowly we can start to target other highly used social media platforms as well, because I've seen many companies move to that as well.
Yeah.
To start with, probably LinkedIn is good, but if we really want to reach out to the more younger generation of crowd, probably we can start to think of other social media platforms as well.
So what I'm hearing, Vishwa, is you're volunteering to set up ECF TikTok.
I don't use TikTok, so but I think Instagram
No,
is on the higher reach out right now. I mean, at least I think Facebook is almost dead, but at least, I mean, this is just from my opinion again.
Yeah, no, I think it would be interesting to see, because I'm not actually too familiar with what other channels in Cozy UK use. I know that they've obviously got a YouTube channel. We've started using that to upload recordings of our systems engineering a year sessions. But I don't know what other communications they use and where we can perhaps tie into that.
I know myself, I only got LinkedIn once I got into my apprenticeship. Before I had that and was looking at careers, it wasn't something I even thought about looking on or being a part of. It was looking through, you know, websites and ads that popped up and stuff like that. So yeah, I think having a look at different channels works as well. It depends, obviously, the age demographic we're looking to target.
Yeah, and it raises an interesting point of where, you know, one of our aims is to improve the diversity of the profession, but taking into account that we can only do so much with the time that we have. But are we only focusing on professional people if we're going through professional in inverted commas professional people? If we go through LinkedIn, are we missing out on a whole other cohort of people? But it's something to link up with in Cozy UK with and understand where can we combine resources there.
Definitely. Anyone else have any comments on that before we move on? So final little bit from us, what's next? So like I said at the start, these outreach forums will kind of run off the ideas of the previous one. So it's the last time it's mentioned about having different ways to sell system engineering. So the idea at the moment, I think we're piloting for the next outreach forum is around the book sessions that we mentioned. Would this be something people would want the session to be, or is there other ideas that people would want the outreach forum to kind of address next time?
Or alternatively, do people want to continue talking about this topic from a different angle or different spin on things? Shivali said that I would certainly love to see more success stories, case studies of system engineers who have tackled interesting industry problems on wider social media channels. I find a lot of systems engineers are more neurodiverse and many lean towards being introverts that need a shout out or be given a voice from Incozy. Yeah, no, thank you for writing that, Shivali. It's a really good point. But yes, I suppose the main question we're asking here is, you know, you as the members of the outreach forum, what is it that you're wanting to discuss next time? What do you want us to focus on, to go away and have some ideas about and then bring back to the wider group? Zishan.
think sorry.
Oh, sorry, Vishwa. Zishan,
No,
you want to
go
go
on.
first?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I was wondering, I think, not sure if this has been discussed before, but in the last 5 years or so, more and more employers, they are rolling out systems engineering specific grad schemes. So you will find more and more systems engineering grad scheme as opposed to generic grad scheme or engineering grad scheme or product development grad schemes. We could potentially reach out, see whether, check whether those employers have any existing members part of INCOSE UK already. Those could be the starting points to sort of get any information on the grad schemes they might have internally. That might give us potentially, any contacts with the grad schemes, and rather than reaching out to the wider systems engineering audience, which might include, experienced people, we could target that towards those specific grad schemes.
So to add to that, I joined ARM as a graduate system engineer. So through the ARM's graduate program. And I went up to the interview level for the graduate system engineer position in Airbus. So they also have graduate system engineer positions open now. There are several. I think even JLR has like a graduate system engineering program. There are several industries which have opened the grad programs very specifically for system engineering now. So that's definitely a great point to add and start to focus as well. And as graduates, when they come into those programs, like I went as an experienced graduate for my company. So it was very different for me. Whereas my other colleagues who join in the graduate program, they do really need support because it's not like they come in with prior experience, right? So if we can have the INCOSE UK supporting them, that would be really, really great.
So just to clarify the ask, just for my understanding, is it that we're wanting to get in contact with companies that run systems engineering grad schemes and see what links they already have within INCOSE UK, or is it something else?
I think to start with, even before we go to companies, I think most of those system engineers are part of the INCOSE UK. So probably the first step would be to reach out to already signed up members who are a part of grad, maybe through LinkedIn, just find out and then reach out to them and, just to understand the process that they go through. And then maybe that can also be a point of discussion to see how we can support.
Zishan, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I think that's a great, I think, action to take from that. There's also, so it's in very sort of early stages at the moment where I'm working at the moment, but we are sort of trying to have internal JLR sort of systems engineering community started, which also means there's a significant presence of grad scheme sort of engineers, graduates. We don't necessarily have to go out and reach them on campus, but we do have, for example, I know there's a lot of systems engineers who are part of those discussions. They're already part of INCOSE UK, and maybe you can find them on the on the catalog that we have on the members list that we publish online. Potentially reach out to them if we know if they're part of any other forum within INCOSE UK. Maybe this forum can reach out to them. But that could be having a session with INCOSE UK representatives during the induction as a graduate scheme engineer, whatever employee you are, might entice them into understanding systems engineering more from INCOSE perspective. But yeah,
so it's the potential of going to these companies that run the grad schemes and seeing if ECF can do a little intro presentation on who we are and what we have to offer these new people in the systems engineering community.
Yeah, because IET definitely does one for JLR, where reps come on site and they provide help with host of different things, so from certifications to the charterships to just normal information. This could be more specific to systems engineering. So sort of streamline that a bit.
No, that's a really good suggestion. Thank you, Zishan.
I actually think most systems engineers are not with INCOSE. In my experience, most that I speak to around me are not registered with INCOSE. They're with IET instead. So I guess, yeah, Zishan's point is quite pertinent that IET does come in and swoop up a lot of systems engineers in addition to other engineers, and INCOSE is quite a niche community at the moment.
Especially, I think now the good part of INCOSE is that about the professional registration, like how IET has a CEng, even we are sort of trying to promote it, right, with professional membership. I mean, apart from the CSEP and ASEP. So if we can bring in more publicity to that as well, it would probably attract more early careers into that, because the main, at least the people I talk to, they are into IET because they have a path towards the other professional membership and the registrations that they get as part of IET.
Yeah. I think INCOSE UK has only had the ability to register people for 2-3 years maybe, and we're hoping to, you're hearing it here first, we're hoping to elect another committee member to the ECF, and the current thinking is to have that role be more focused on professional development on the registration and certification side. So that's potentially something that can be worked on through that.
Brilliant. So just close up now. So we've reached the hour. So next steps, you're discussing a way of best keeping in touch with members of the Outreach Forum. We come up with using Teams at the moment, but this is open discussion. Do people think having Teams for members of early career, the Outreach Forum to stay in touch is a good idea, or is there any platforms that people think would be best suited for this type of discussion instead?
Discord.
Discord? Okay.
Discord.
Yeah. It's definitely something we can look into.
Yeah, it's a good way of doing forums and different work streams and that.
I do have a comment. Recently, in past couple of months, I faced this difficulty where the emails were not being delivered correctly after signing up for sessions within INCOSE.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's just my team's not working.
No, so what would you be able to elaborate a bit on that? Is it signing up for a Teams event and then not seeing it in your calendar, or is it signing up through the ECF events page and not seeing anything after that? Or
both, for ECF as well as the INCOSE UK events. I couldn't see them in the calendar. Could be something on my end, but I just wanted to like that.
Yeah, so the ECF events, we've not been as disciplined with uploading them onto the actual ECF page. Something trying to get better at getting back into the habit of doing that. I'm not sure about the Teams issue though. That's something we need to look into. Has anyone else had issues like this before?
I had issues with the working groups because I sign up to them, but I have not heard anything from some of them, and wonder if it's because I don't get the emails or because some groups work on a very different timeline.
Which working groups are those? Because I know that some of them are more dormant than others.
Yeah, on the INCOSE, I can't even name you because that's how long ago I signed up and didn't hear from them. But yeah, it's from the INCOSE website.
Okay. Do you know if you subscribe to the MBSE working group? I only ask because I know that they're particularly active.
I did, and I didn't get the email. So yeah, maybe there is an email problem then, because MBSE is the first one I tried to sign up to.
They've got the most members and do the most stuff. So I'll try and raise that.
Okay.
For me, I signed up on the website, but I didn't get an invite until somebody from the working group actually invited me for an event. I mean, again, out of the INCOSI page. So I happened to meet somebody who's part of that, and then they invited me, and that's how I happened to be a part of the working group. And now I receive emails. But
Oh,
before that,
that's
I did not
interesting.
receive. I had the
That's
same
very
problem as well.
Who do we go to? Do you know?
There is, I mean, I can find the name and I can send you.
No, generally, like on the website, a question from Nathan. Do you know if there's a specific place you have to go to raise this?
So I can raise it with wider INCOSI UK. I'm not sure if there's like a help. Let me look into that for you, Shivali, and I'll try and see if that's an issue that more people are suffering with.
Yeah, because if we could have, I'll have like a status on the groups as well. Be interested. It would be good to know which ones are active and
Yeah,
which ones
it was a point that was raised in the last joint meeting between the INCOSI UK Council and the UK Advisory Board, was around, all right, which groups are active, which are still doing, which groups do we need to sort of officially close down to make that clear to people what is and isn't going on. So I know that is something that's being worked on currently.
Oh, that's great then. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try and get an answer to you though about this particular issue though.
So last thing to mention from ourselves here, obviously, is the survey reminder. So a couple of you may have got an email a couple of weeks back to complete a survey for us, again, where we want ECF to go. A reminder will be sent out again this week, but obviously just a verbal reminder. If you can complete that, it helps us massively. All in all, so thank you for everyone attending today. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we finish up for the day? Sounds good there. Take the silence as a no. Well, once again, thank you everyone for attending, and look out for your emails for the upcoming events from ECF.